The text message illuminated Colton's phone like a neon sign in our dimly lit bedroom. Can't wait to see you today. It's been too long. Frederick. My hands trembled as I set it back on the nightstand exactly where I had discovered it. Frederick. His ex-wife. The woman he had been having coffee with every Sunday for the last 3 months. When I confronted him, his response was chilling. If you can't trust me spending every weekend with my ex-wife, maybe we shouldn't be together. I looked him straight in the eye and replied, "You're absolutely right." The following morning, I signed the transfer papers to London that I had been hesitating to sign for him. Hours later, as he texted me, "What are you doing this weekend?" I sent a selfie from Heathrow Airport. The woman who is seemingly counting down the hours until she sees my husband again. I slip back under our Egyptian cotton sheets, pretending to sleep while my thoughts race. The phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m. Who sends messages that early unless they've been thinking about someone all night? I force my breathing to remain steady as Colton stirs beside me, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone as if it's a lifeline. The soft glow lights up his face as he reads the message. I watch through barely opened eyes as a smile spreads across his features. The kind of smile I haven't seen directed at anything involving me in months. He types back quickly, his fingers moving with practiced ease across the screen. The response is short, but his expression indicates it's filled with meaning I'm not supposed to grasp. "Morning, beautiful." His voice carries that forced cheerfulness people adopt when they're concealing something significant. He leans over to kiss my forehead, and I catch a hint of the cologne he's already put on. At 6 o'clock in the morning for Sunday coffee with a friend, I murmur something vague and roll over, giving him space to continue whatever act he's performing. Through the reflection in our dresser mirror, I observe him choosing his outfit with a level of care typically reserved for job interviews or first dates. The cashmere sweater I gifted him for Christmas. The designer jeans that are pricier than most people's rent. Everything is coordinated to appear effortlessly luxurious. This has become our Sunday routine for the past 3 months. Ever since Frederick Morrison announced her return to London through a casually crafted text that Colton shared with me as if it were completely innocent. My ex-wife is back in town. She might want to grab coffee to catch up. Such simple words for something that would gradually unravel our marriage, one weekend at a time. I can still vividly recall that first Sunday. Colton had dressed casually then. Weekend attire, ready in 5 minutes, hardly a glance in the mirror. He returned 2 hours later with tales of Frederick's photography career in New York, her challenges readjusting to London, and how she needed help navigating the competitive art scene. I listened while organizing our bookshelf, noticing the excitement in his voice as he spoke about her projects, the way his eyes sparkled when discussing her creative vision. "Perhaps we should invite her over for dinner," I suggested, testing the waters. "I would love to meet her properly." The suggestion landed like a stone in still water. Colton's enthusiasm faded, replaced by that careful expression he wore during tough client negotiations. "She's very private right now, going through a challenging transition. Maybe once she's more settled." That should have been my first red flag. In 4 years of marriage, Colton had never been protective of anyone's privacy except his own. But I wanted to trust him. I trusted the man who had promised me forever in a church filled with 200 witnesses. I trusted the partner who had built this beautiful life with me, brick by expensive brick. Our Georgian townhouse in Richmond, featured in 3 different design magazines. My flourishing marketing consultancy. His corner office overlooking the Thames. We were the couple that others admired at dinner parties, the ones who appeared to have figured out how to have it all. So, I chose to overlook the warning signs, disregarding how he began to pay more attention to his looks on Sundays, the growing number of their meetings, the lengthening time spent together, and the late-night phone calls that had him stepping out to our garden for some privacy. I even ignored my own gut feelings when those calls began interrupting our dinner chats. Colton would apologize while stepping outside to assist Frederick with some urgent work crisis that always seemed to arise during our limited time together. The shower starts running, and I realize I have exactly 20 minutes before he comes out. Fully ready for another day in his alternate reality. 20 minutes to lie here and act as if I don't know what I know. Act as if I haven't seen the credit card charges from pricey restaurants piling up. Act as if I haven't noticed how our weekend plans always get cancelled due to Frederick's emergencies. act as if I haven't started sleeping in the guest room because listening to his late-night talks with her makes me feel nauseous. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. An email from my company's London office marked urgent. The subject line makes my stomach churn. European Division Director, final consideration, time sensitive. I delete it without reading, just like I did with the last two offers. £145,000 a year to lead their European division. My own team, unlimited creative freedom, a chance to create something entirely my own. But accepting would mean disrupting our perfect life in Richmond. Leaving behind the beautiful life Colton and I have built together. Except our life isn't perfect anymore, is it? It's a carefully crafted illusion, like one of those movie sets that looks real from the front but reveals itself to be nothing but scaffolding and paint when seen from behind. The water stops running. I hear him humming something as he dries off. In fact, he's humming as he prepares for his weekly betrayal. The sound tightens my chest with a mix of anger and heartbreak that I'm becoming all too accustomed to. I push myself out of bed and make my way to the kitchen, craving the ritual of brewing coffee to anchor me in something tangible. The morning light pours through our custom Italian curtains, illuminating the marble countertops we painstakingly chose together. Every element in this room reflects our partnership, our shared choices, and our united dreams. The espresso machine we purchased in Tuscany. The dining table where we've hosted countless dinner parties. The kitchen island where we've mapped out vacations, discussed 5-year plans, and envisioned the children we hoped to have. Now, all of it feels like evidence of a crime. Proof of what I'm losing to a woman who effortlessly embodies artistic poverty in her vintage band t-shirts. Colton steps into the doorway, freshly showered and impeccably groomed. He's wearing that cologne again, the pricey one he claimed was a gift from a client, yet I've never seen him wear it to any client meeting. His hair is styled with a precision usually reserved for board presentations or photo shoots. The coffee smells incredible, he says, kissing my cheek with lips that taste of the mouthwash he uses before significant meetings. You're up early for a Sunday. I want to confront him about the text. I want to demand answers for the increasingly elaborate morning routine. I want to understand why his ex-wife is counting down the hours until she sees him. Instead, I hand him his coffee in the mug I gifted him last Christmas. The one that reads, "World's Best Husband" in elegant script. The irony isn't lost on either of us. Another crisis with Frederick? I inquire, keeping my tone carefully neutral. He nods, already checking his phone again. Gallery politics. You know how complicated the art world can be. I don't actually. He doesn't either, as far as I was aware, until 3 months ago when he seemingly became adept at navigating the creative industry. Yet, I nod along, fulfilling my part in whatever narrative we are both acting out. He departs 20 minutes later, leaving a kiss that feels like both an apology and a vow to return by dinner. I observe from our front window as he strides to his car, noticing the bounce in his step that was once reserved for our date nights. The car vanishes around the corner, taking my husband toward the fantasy he has crafted with the woman who once shared his name. I remain at the window, and my phone buzzes again. Another email from London. This time, I don't delete it right away. Instead, I find myself staring at the subject line, contemplating what might occur if I finally embraced the life that has been waiting for me while I've been preoccupied with salvaging the one that has already ended. The London email lingers on my phone, unopened yet impossible to overlook. I pour myself another cup of coffee and settle at our kitchen island, allowing the silence of our empty home to envelop me like a blanket I neither want nor can do without. 2 weeks go by before I notice the shifts in Colton's Sunday rituals. It begins with the cologne. Not his typical weekday fragrance, but something richer, more luxurious. The kind he wore during our first anniversary dinner at that Mayfair restaurant where we couldn't afford the wine, yet ordered it anyway. While organizing our walk-in closet, I notice the Hermes shirt is missing from its usual spot. The navy one with the subtle pattern that cost me 3 weeks' worth of grocery money for our anniversary. It's Tuesday, and Colton is at the office in his standard corporate attire, which indicates that shirt has found its way somewhere else entirely. Sunday morning solidifies my suspicions. He steps out of our bathroom wearing it, paired with dark jeans that likely cost more than our monthly electric bill. The casual sophistication of someone dressing to impress while feigning indifference. Nice shirt, I remark, as I neatly fold his weekend clothes into organized piles. Special occasion, he asks, fiddling with the clasp of his watch. Just coffee with Frederick, he replies. You know how image-conscious the art world can be, right? It seems his ex-wife's professional circle demands he dress as if he's going to a gallery opening instead of just having a quick coffee with an old friend. I watch him spend 25 minutes on his hair, using products I've never seen him use before. When he notices me watching his reflection in the bathroom mirror, he gives a sheepish smile. Important networking, he says, as if styling his hair like a model is a normal part of maintaining professional connections. Must be some important networking, I respond, trying to keep it light while a chill settles in my stomach. All this effort for Frederick. The change in him is instant. His expression hardens, and his shoulders square as if he's gearing up for a fight. Don't be ridiculous, Paige. Adults can be friends with their exes without it meaning anything. The word ridiculous strikes me the wrong way. After 4 years of marriage, he's never dismissed my concerns as ridiculous before. Misguided, perhaps overthinking, definitely, but never ridiculous, like I'm some jealous teenager conjuring up issues that aren't there. I didn't say it meant anything, I reply cautiously. Just noticed you're dressing up more than usual. He softens a bit, but the damage is done. That word lingers between us like smoke from a fire, and we're both pretending not to notice it. Monday arrives with lunch plans with Josephine at our usual cafe in Richmond, known for its overpriced salads favored by professional women who lunch. I wish someone would reassure me that I'm overthinking things, that marriages go through phases, and that everything will return to normal once Frederick settles into her life in London and stops needing my husband's constant support. Instead, Josephine gives me a lecture on trust and emotional maturity while she picks at her quinoa bowl. You're feeling insecure, she remarks, stirring her oat milk latte with a confidence that comes from never having faced true betrayal. It's genuinely beautiful that they can keep a friendship. This reflects real emotional growth. Beautiful. That's the term she selects while I recount witnessing my husband change into someone unfamiliar every Sunday morning. But isn't it a bit excessive? Every weekend for hours on end. Josephine's smile carries that specific condescension typical of women who believe they've unlocked the key to successful relationships. Paige, darling, if you can't trust your husband to share coffee with an old friend, perhaps the issue lies elsewhere. I leave feeling worse than when I came. Josephine's words resonate in my mind as I navigate through Richmond's tree-lined streets on my way home. Maybe I am being insecure. Perhaps this is what mature relationships entail. Completely trusting your partner, even when every instinct tells you something is off. Tuesday's business meeting with James offers a completely different viewpoint. We've been partners for 5 years, transforming our marketing consultancy from scratch into something respectable. James knows me well enough to sense the tension in my shoulders and the distraction in my responses to client updates. Is everything okay at home? He inquires as we go over quarterly projections. I find myself detailing Colton's Sunday routine, the rising number of meetings, the intricate preparations for casual coffee dates. James listens attentively, his expression becoming more serious with each detail I share. When I finish, he doesn't provide reassurance or advice. He simply raises his eyebrows in that way I've come to understand over years of collaboration. The look he gives when clients describe marketing strategies that defy logic. Interesting is all he says, but his silence conveys a lot. Later, as we pack up our laptops, he mentions it almost casually. I saw Colton last Sunday at that new spot in Shoreditch. You know, the one with the exposed brick and the hefty 20-pound stakes. My hand is still resting on my keyboard. There's a shortage. He mentioned they were grabbing coffee in Richmond. James' expression turns carefully neutral. Perhaps they altered their plans. He was accompanied by a woman, a brunette with an artistic vibe. They appeared, he pauses, selecting his words with care, like they were on a date. The realization hits me like a splash of cold water. James quickly diverts the conversation to client retention rates, but the damage has already been done. My husband deceived me about where he was meeting his ex-wife, and they were at a place so pricey that James recalls it distinctly. October rolls in with longer Sunday meetings and a new development that tightens my chest with recognition. The phone calls begin to occur at night, typically around 10 o'clock, just as we're settling down to watch TV or read. Colton's phone buzzes. He glances at it, and his whole demeanor changes. Sorry, it's Frederick. Client emergency. He steps out to our garden, leaving me alone with the muted TV and the sound of his lively conversation wafting through the French doors. I can't catch the words, but his tone is different during these calls, warmer, more engaged than I've heard in months. The conversations grow longer each week. 20 minutes turns into 30, then 45. I find myself timing them, lying in bed, listening to the rise and fall of his voice as he paces along our garden path. He laughs during these calls. Genuine, joyful laughter that makes me realize I can't recall the last time he laughed like that with me. When he comes back to our bedroom, he's always apologetic but vague about the emergencies that necessitate such lengthy discussions. Gallery politics, client negotiations, industry connections. Apparently, Frederick needs help navigating London's competitive art scene, and my husband has somehow become an expert in creative industry management, despite never showing any interest in art beyond what looks good on our walls. What types of client issues necessitate late-night consultations? I ponder this one evening after he has spent an hour outside, guiding her through some vague crisis. He returns to our bed, his phone finally quiet on the nightstand. You know how creative individuals can be. Everything feels urgent and charged with emotion. She simply needs someone who comprehends the business aspect, right? After all, the woman who established a thriving photography career in New York, one of the most competitive markets globally, suddenly requires my husband's assistance in managing basic professional matters. The phone seems to be perpetually awake now. It buzzes during our dinner talks, disrupts the movies we try to enjoy together, and illuminates the dark bedroom at all hours with messages from Frederick. When I inquire about the incessant communication, Colton clarifies that Frederick is having a tough time adjusting back to London, needs emotional support, and seeks advice on everything from finding an apartment to rebuilding her professional connections. She's very fragile right now, he mentions, as if this justifies why his ex-wife demands more attention than his current wife. Fragile. This term starts to pop up often in his descriptions of Frederick. Fragile emotional state, fragile professional circumstances, fragile adjustment to life in London. This woman, who uprooted her entire life and relocated to another country to chase her career, is seemingly too delicate to navigate basic life challenges without my husband's constant involvement. I begin to sleep in our guest room, convincing myself it's due to his late-night conversations keeping me awake. But the reality is more complex. Lying next to someone who prioritizes another woman's needs over our shared bedtime feels like a unique form of torture I am not prepared to face every night. From the guest room, I can still hear him speaking to her through the walls. His voice sounds different at night, softer and more intimate than the professional tone he adopts during business calls. At times, I catch snippets of reassurance regarding her talent, encouragement about her future, and promises that things will improve. I can't recall the last moment he spoke to me with such gentle certainty. The guest room has turned into both my refuge and my confinement. 3 weeks into my self-imposed separation from our shared bed, I stumble upon the dark allure of social media stalking. At 2 a.m., insomnia has become my unwanted companion, arriving just as Colton's breathing settles into the deep rhythm of someone sleeping soundly, despite the fact that he is systematically unraveling his marriage. Tonight, like many nights before, I find myself reaching for my phone, my thumb hovering over the Instagram app with the kind of hesitation typically reserved for opening medical test results. Frederick Morrison's profile loads with a cruel efficiency. There are no privacy settings, no barriers between me and the carefully curated glimpse into the life that has captured my husband's attention. Her feed is precisely what I anticipated. Artfully arranged chaos that screams an authentic bohemian lifestyle. Vintage band t-shirts draped over unmade beds. Gallery openings captured in moody black and white. Coffee cups photographed from angles that suggest profound artistic contemplation. Yet, it's the locations that send a chill through my veins. Richmond Farmers Market tagged 14 days ago. The same Sunday Colton claimed they were just meeting for coffee at some generic cafe. The photo displays autumn produce arranged like a still life, but I recognize the vendor stalls, the cobblestone layout, and the Victorian lampposts that line the market square where Colton end. I have shopped together every other weekend for 4 years. I scroll further, my thumb moving with the mechanical persistence of someone picking at a wound. Our favorite antique shop on Hill Rise, photographed 6 days ago with the caption, "Hidden treasures in unexpected places." The image shows vintage jewelry displayed against weathered wood, the same display case where Colton and I discovered the Art Deco mirror that now hangs in our hallway. He's not merely meeting my husband, he's exploring my life, capturing the places that are ours, the spots filled with our shared memories and inside jokes. Each photograph feels like proof of a territorial takeover, a deliberate claiming of spaces I believed were exclusively ours. The most frustrating part is how stunning her photography is. Each picture is crafted with such professional finesse, turning ordinary locations into something that seems fit for gallery displays. She possesses a talent for discovering beauty in places I've always viewed as just functional. Observing my life through her artistic perspective makes me feel mundane in comparison, as if I've been living in black and white while she perceives everything in vibrant color. Morning brings the monthly routine of sorting out our finances, a chore I've always taken on because Colton finds numbers dull unless they relate to his quarterly bonuses. I lay out bank statements across our dining room table, cross-referencing receipts with automated charges, searching for the familiar patterns of our predictable life. Instead, I uncover signs of someone else's presence woven through our accounts like an unwelcome thread. Frederick. Lou Bernardine in shortage £180 for dinner on a Sunday when Colton assured me they just had sandwiches at a local cafe. Saatchi gallery admission for two bought the same afternoon. He claimed they spent time strolling through Richmond Park discussing her career prospects. Most incriminating of all are the charges from the Ned's Lobby Bar in central London dated last Sunday when he swore they only had a quick coffee before he returned home early because Frederick was feeling overwhelmed. The numbers don't lie, even when everything else does. I take photos of each questionable charge with my phone, creating a digital case file that I'm uncertain I want to pursue. When Colton walks into our kitchen that evening, loosening his tie after another day of managing other people's finances, I lay the statements before him like cards in a poker game. Expensive coffee dates, I say, pointing to the restaurant charge. His response is swift and effortless. Almost too effortless, as if he has been rehearsing for this discussion. That wasn't coffee. We encountered some gallery owners that Frederick knows from a networking dinner in New York. You understand how crucial connections are in creative fields. His explanation flows so easily that I nearly buy into it, almost. Until I point out the gallery admission fees and observe him weave another intricate tale about attending exhibitions to gain insight into Frederick's artistic influences. 2 tickets, I inquire. She required moral support. These gallery events can be quite daunting when you're attempting to rebuild professional connections. Each falsehood builds upon the last, forming a more intricate story that justifies every questionable detail. His tone exudes the assurance of someone who has rehearsed these justifications, polishing them until they seem not only believable but also logical. The hotel bar charge demands the most inventive storytelling. Colton claims they encountered a potential client there who was only free for 30 minutes between flights. Frederick had felt anxious about the meeting, needing his assistance to navigate the discussion, and afterward, they enjoyed a quick drink to discuss the interaction. His fabrications flow so effortlessly that I begin to doubt my own understanding of the facts. Perhaps these charges do have innocent explanations. Perhaps I am perceiving conspiracies where mere friendship exists. Maybe Josephine was correct about my insecurity tainting my viewpoint. Saturday morning laundry turns into an archaeological dig. As I sort through our clothes, I notice that Colton's favorite leather jacket hasn't shown up in the hamper for 3 weeks. Nor has the navy wool scarf I gifted him from Paris last year, the one he said made him look sophisticated enough for European business meetings. When I inquire about the missing items, he doesn't even glance up from his newspaper. Frederick's cleaners. That jacket requires special treatment, and the scarf was stained during lunch last week. On Monday afternoon, I visit Somerset Cleaners, the place we've relied on for 5 years. The woman at the counter recognizes us by name and recalls our usual pickups. She shakes her head when I mention the jacket and scarf. Haven't seen those items, dear. Nothing of your husband's has been in for over a month. I find myself in the shop, surrounded by plastic-wrapped clothes that belong to other people's lives, realizing that items are disappearing from our home just as pieces of our marriage are fading away. It starts with small things that are barely noticeable, then progresses to larger absences that create obvious voids. That evening, I begin to mentally catalog Colton's wardrobe. Not out of paranoia, but from an increasing need to document the systematic unraveling of our shared life. The expensive watch he wore to last year's company party. The silk tie his mother gifted him for his birthday. Each missing item feels like evidence in a case I'm constructing against my own husband. On Wednesday afternoon, I find myself in our front garden, planting tulip bulbs for spring blooms that I'm uncertain I'll be here to witness. The physical labor feels therapeutic. I dig into the soil, placing bulbs with careful spacing, covering them with earth and hope that they will bloom beautifully when the weather warms up again. It's a lovely afternoon for gardening. Mrs. Harrington's voice floats over the hedge that divides our properties. She's in her 70s and has lived in Richmond long enough to know everyone's business without intending to pry. We discuss bulb varieties and the best planting depths until she mentions seeing Colton last Sunday. Your husband has a good eye for walking routes. Richmond Park is stunning this time of year. My hands remain in the soil. Walking routes. Oh yes. I was returning from visiting my sister and spotted him near the Albert Gate. A lovely day for a romantic stroll. The word romantic strikes me like a splash of cold water. He was alone. Mrs. Harrington's expression changes, her friendly demeanor clouding as she realizes she has ventured into dangerous territory. No, my dear, that's not the case. He was with a woman, a brunette who was quite attractive in an artistic sense. They strolled hand in hand, looking very much like a couple savoring the afternoon together. She describes Frederick with an unsettling accuracy. The vintage attire, the camera draped around her neck, the way she leaned into Colton as they walked, all the details align perfectly with the woman I've been observing through Instagram photos. The woman my husband insists needs nothing more than friendly coffee and professional advice. Mrs. Harrington realizes she has shared some distressing news and swiftly shifts the topic to her rose bushes and their winter preparation. Yet, the harm is done. My neighbor, who has no ulterior motives beyond engaging in pleasant conversation, has provided first-hand evidence that my husband and his ex-wife are acting like lovers rather than old friends catching up over innocent coffee. I continue planting the tulip bulbs, my hands trembling despite the mild afternoon weather. Frederick's dirt accumulates beneath my nails, and I ponder how deeply I've been entangled in lies without recognizing that the soil was suffocating me. Each bulb I place in the earth feels like a glimmer of hope I'm uncertain I still possess. A belief in futures that may not include the man I wed. The sun sets over Richmond as I toil, casting a golden light over our neighborhood that renders everything beautiful and serene. However, beauty can be misleading. I'm discovering that the most picturesque lives can hide the most grotesque truths. Sometimes, the signs of betrayal are as straightforward as your neighbor mentioning they spotted your husband holding hands with another woman in the park where you once walked together. The tulip bulbs rest buried in our front garden like secrets I've sown in fertile soil, awaiting spring to unveil what I've known all along. I meticulously clean the dirt from beneath my nails. Each scrape of the nail brush resonates with Mrs. Harrington's remarks about romantic walks and hand-holding, which seem unrelated to our professional coffee meetings. The following days unfold in a peculiar, suspended manner as I navigate through our daily life while simultaneously gathering evidence against it. Work meetings blur into one another, and client calls fade into mere background noise. I manage to smile at the right moments during conversations that I'm not truly engaged in. Meanwhile, my phone is ablaze with screenshots and proof that I can't help but accumulate. Then comes Thursday evening, which alters everything. As I review quarterly projections, a notification from Frederick's Instagram story appears on my phone. The image loads with heartbreaking clarity. It's a gallery opening in a trendy area, featuring exposed brick walls and industrial lighting. Frederick is among a crowd of well-dressed art lovers, adorned in a black dress I've never seen before, but it's the accessory that takes my breath away. My grandmother's vintage pearl earrings. The very ones with intricate silver settings that have been passed down through 3 generations. The earrings Colton borrowed last month for what he described as an important client event that needed elegant accessories to create the right impression. I zoom in until the image becomes pixelated, but there's no mistaking them. Those earrings have been in my family since 1952, handed down from my grandmother to my mother and then to me, accompanied by tales of wearing them on special occasions, of saving them for moments that truly mattered. Apparently, gallery openings with his ex-wife are considered moments that matter. The timestamp reads Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Last Thursday, when Colton insisted he was working late on year-end budgets, while I dined alone and went to bed early because he texted that the numbers were taking longer than anticipated. While I was drifting off to sleep in our guest room, he was watching his ex-wife flaunt my grandmother's jewelry at art openings in neighborhoods he had never taken me to explore. I capture everything with trembling hands, adding it to the expanding folder of evidence I've named documentation, as labeling it for what it truly is feels too painful to confront. The image joins bank statements, Instagram posts, and inconsistencies in timelines within a digital archive of betrayal that becomes heavier with each passing day. By Friday morning, the earrings are back in my jewelry box, resting in their familiar velvet compartment as if they never left. Yet, touching them feels different now, tainted by the awareness of where they've been, whose skin they've brushed against, and the moments they've witnessed that had nothing to do with our marriage. Friday afternoon brings an unexpected lifeline in the form of a phone call. My boss's voice radiates excitement that pierces through the haze of domestic surveillance I've been enduring. Paige, I need you to consider something extraordinary. We're not merely discussing a transfer anymore. We want you to spearhead our entire European division. Your own team, limitless creative control, complete authority over strategy and implementation. The salary figure makes me sit down. £160,000 a year, plus relocation assistance, plus equity options that could potentially triple my earnings within 2 years. It's the kind of opportunity that people spend their entire careers hoping to find, handed to me just when I need an escape route from the life I've been desperately trying to salvage. I know you've turned it down before, he continues. But this role was crafted specifically for your skill set. Think about it over the weekend. London's calling, and they want you specifically. For the first time in months, I find myself genuinely listening instead of instinctively searching for reasons to say no. When Colton arrives home that evening, practically glowing from another successful day of supporting Frederick's emotional well-being, I choose not to mention the call. The silence feels deliberate, powerful. My first true secret in 4 years of marriage built on the illusion of transparency. He navigates our kitchen, preparing dinner while sharing details about Frederick's recent achievement in managing her transition to London. His tone is filled with the enthusiasm of someone who truly cares about another's success, reminiscent of the excitement he once reserved for my own professional milestones. I observe him skillfully chopping vegetables, noticing how his face brightens as he discusses her advancements, her insights, and her increasing confidence in the London art scene. When he inquires about my day, his interest seems somewhat perfunctory, merely going through the motions of a caring spouse while his true emotional focus is directed elsewhere. October 15th arrives, dreary and cold, reflecting the weight of the day. I am the only one who recalls our 4th wedding anniversary. The day we vowed to each other forever in front of 200 guests who likely believed we had discovered something profound that eluded them. I awaken alone in the guest room, having spent yet another night listening to Colton's muffled phone calls through the walls. There are no flowers on the kitchen counter, no card leaning against the coffee maker, and no sign that this date holds any significance beyond being just another Sunday in his meticulously organized routine of emotional betrayal. Colton steps out of our bedroom already dressed for another day with Frederick, wearing the watch I gifted him for our first anniversary and the cologne that has become a symbol of his infidelity. When I bring up the date while brewing coffee, he appears genuinely taken aback, not guilty or remorseful, but bewildered, as if I had mentioned an obscure holiday he was unaware of. It's our anniversary, I remind him, curious if he will recall it without further prompting. Recognition slowly washes over him, followed by that familiar look men get when they realize they have overlooked something important. Of course, I'm sorry I've been so preoccupied with work lately. We'll celebrate properly tonight, I promise. Frederick's dinner at that place you adore. But the hurt has already been inflicted. He is so absorbed in his fantasy life with his ex-wife that he has completely overlooked the actual anniversary of his true marriage. The day we stood before God and all our friends and family, vowing to put each other first above everything else. Frederick, don't worry about it, I say, genuinely meaning it more than he understands. I'm sure Frederick needs you today. He kisses my forehead with lips that feel like a duty before vanishing into his alternate reality. I spend the day alone in our home, surrounded by wedding photos that now seem like evidence of a crime I was unaware was happening. The albums narrate a tale of 2 individuals who thought they had discovered something everlasting, something worth constructing a life around. Young faces brimming with hope and certainty. Hands intertwined as if we would never let go. Eyes that envisioned futures we were convinced we would share. Looking at those pictures now feels like scrutinizing relics from a civilization that has long since vanished. Sunday evening finds me dialing James' number while Colton prolongs his anniversary celebration with Frederick into its 7th hour. We gather at an all-night diner in Putney, the type of establishment that serves coffee strong enough to fuel tough discussions and fluorescent lighting that makes everyone appear weary and sincere. I lay my phone across the Formica table like evidence in a courtroom. Screenshots, bank statements, timelines, even voice memos I've recorded documenting Colton's justifications for various discrepancies. James inspects each item with the meticulous focus he applies to client presentations, occasionally posing clarifying questions about dates or asking me to elaborate on context I've become too close to perceive clearly. Mrs. Harrington saw them holding hands in Richmond Park, I mentioned, showing him notes I've taken from our gardening chat. On the same Sunday, he asserted they had coffee to discuss her client crisis. James nods without surprise, as if he has been anticipating this evidence to emerge eventually. As I conclude my presentation, a collection of months' worth of documentation reveals a progressively clearer narrative of systematic deceit. He lifts his gaze from my phone, wearing an expression I recognize from challenging client meetings. "You know what this is, don't you?" he asks softly. I nod, unable to utter the word affair, as saying it would make it real in a way I'm not sure I'm prepared to confront. Yet, hearing James affirm my deepest fears validates the months of intuition I've been doubting. These instincts, which I've been advised to dismiss in the name of trust and emotional maturity, now echo loudly. The fluorescent lights buzz above us as we sit in the heavy silence that follows such devastating truths. Outside, London carries on with its life while mine shifts into something unrecognizable, something that will demand choices I never thought I would have to face. The diner's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on James' face as he slides my phone back across the table. The evidence lies between us like a smoking gun that neither of us wish to discover but can no longer overlook. "What are you going to do?" he inquires, his tone reflecting the careful neutrality of someone aware they are on the brink of another's life-altering decision. I gaze at the phone screen, still showing Frederick's gallery opening photo, with my grandmother's earrings sparkling under the art world's lighting. I'm uncertain of my next steps, but that's not entirely accurate. Somewhere in the depths of my mind, a plan is already taking shape. Not revenge, precisely, but something akin to self-preservation masked as strategy. The months from October to February blur into a strange haze of parallel existences. I keep going to work, meeting clients, and crafting campaigns that help others realize their dreams while mine slowly deteriorates. Colton persists with his Sunday rituals, late-night phone calls, and elaborate justifications for charges and disappearances, as well as timeline discrepancies that multiply like cancer cells. We live in the same house like courteous strangers, sharing space and expenses, yet nothing of real significance. He has ceased apologizing for his absences and no longer provides explanations that I've stopped requesting. I've given up pretending to accept whatever narrative he's crafted to rationalize his latest betrayal. The London offer lingers in my inbox like a lifeline I'm hesitant to seize. My boss has called 3 times for a response. Each time, I ask for more time to think it over, fully aware that I'm truly waiting for Colton to grant me permission to leave by finally being truthful about wanting me to go. February arrives, gray and bitter, reflecting my mood as I sit in our kitchen at 7 a.m., reviewing client proposals that increasingly feel devoid of meaning. Outside, Richmond resembles a watercolor painting left out in the rain. All blurred edges and muted hues that echo the disintegration of everything I once believed to be permanent. Footsteps on the stairs signal Colton's arrival, though I can already tell from the sound that this isn't his usual relaxed weekend descent. These steps carry purpose, precision, the rhythm of someone gearing up for an important performance. He steps out from our bedroom looking as if he's on his way to a magazine photo shoot rather than to meet a friend in emotional turmoil. The cashmere sweater I gifted him for Christmas. Charcoal gray Italian wool, pricey enough that I hesitated before purchasing it. Frederick jeans that cost more than most people's monthly grocery bills. His hair is styled with products I've never seen him use for any client meeting or social event in our 4 years of marriage. Another emergency with Frederick? I inquire without glancing up from my laptop. Gallery politics, he replies, adjusting his watch with the practiced ease of someone who has gone through this routine countless times. She's struggling with a challenging gallery owner who is questioning her artistic vision. She needs someone who comprehends the business aspect of creative industries. Indeed, it seems that overnight my husband has transformed into an expert in art world negotiations, despite never having shown any real interest in creative pursuits beyond selecting what looks impressive on our walls. I observe him as he checks his reflection in the hallway mirror, adjusting his collar with a level of care typically reserved for board meetings or significant dates. The man staring back at him is someone I hardly recognize. He is not the person I married, but rather someone who has been meticulously crafted to meet someone else's aesthetic standards. I suggest he stay home with me instead, deliberately closing my laptop with calmness. We could take a drive to Bath like we used to, and explore that antique market he once expressed a desire to visit. His response is immediate and visceral, as if I have proposed something truly offensive. His demeanor shifts from casual readiness to overt irritation, his eyebrows knitting together in the expression he reserves for unreasonable client demands. I can't abandon her when she needs support, he states, emphasizing the word abandon in a way that makes its implications painfully clear. Abandon. Apparently, leaving his ex-wife alone for just one Sunday would be seen as abandonment, a cruel, thoughtless desertion of someone in crisis. Yet, leaving his actual wife alone every weekend for 4 months is merely maintaining healthy adult friendships. The irony hangs between us like a live wire that neither of us dares to touch. What about my needs? The question escapes my lips quieter than I had hoped, but it carries enough weight to make him halt in his preparations. For a fleeting moment, I believe he might genuinely reflect on the question. He might remember that he has a wife who has become increasingly invisible in his meticulously curated life. He might recognize that I have been patient, understanding, and cooperative while he has systematically prioritized another woman over our marriage. Instead, his expression hardens into the cold, calculating demeanor he adopts during hostile business negotiations, designed to shut down conversations rather than foster them. We have thoroughly talked about this, Paige. Frederick and I share a friendship. Adults can have platonic connections with their ex-partners without it implying anything inappropriate. He pauses, examining my face with the same analytical sharpness he applies to financial evaluations that decide if investments are worthwhile. Actually, he goes on, his tone adopting the steady rhythm of someone reading a prepared statement. If you can't trust me spending every weekend with my ex-wife, perhaps we shouldn't be together at all. The ensuing silence feels endless, like the interval between lightning and thunder when the entire world seems to hold its breath. I can hear our neighbor's dog barking at something only it perceives. Sunday morning traffic is starting to accumulate on Richmond Road. Our antique grandfather clock in the hallway ticks away the moments of our marriage with mechanical accuracy. But mostly, I hear the sound of 4 years of a carefully built life finally fracturing down the middle, splitting along fault lines that have been forming for months without either of us recognizing the structural damage. He has presented me with an ultimatum disguised as a choice. Accept his relationship with Frederick or terminate our marriage. Trust him completely or lose him entirely. Conform to his version of reality or face the repercussions of questioning it. What he fails to see is that he has also granted me the freedom to end this facade while preserving my dignity. I look him straight in the eyes, finally seeing clearly for the first time in months. The man standing in our hallway, dressed in clothes I purchased for him, wearing cologne he reserves for another woman. Styling his hair for someone who is not his wife. This is no longer my husband. This is someone wearing my husband's face, residing in my home, consuming my emotional energy while offering his true self to someone else entirely. You're absolutely right, I respond, my voice carrying a calmness that surprises us both. His expression undergoes intriguing transformations. Confusion initially strikes him like a computer grappling with contradictory data, followed by a sense of alarm as he realizes this isn't the narrative he had envisioned. He had anticipated tears, accusations, perhaps even a theatrical scene he could later recount to Frederick as proof of my emotional instability and his rightful need for support from someone who comprehends him better. What he didn't foresee was agreement. A calm, rational, and immediate agreement that his ultimatum is entirely reasonable. Wait, he says, his previously confident negotiating stance wavering. We should discuss this, but I mean every word with surgical precision. I'm finished with the entire elaborate act of pretending our marriage can endure someone who is already emotionally detached from it. Frederick pretending that love equates to accepting falsehoods as reality. That trust involves overlooking the truth. That commitment signifies tolerating systematic betrayal masked as friendship. He stands in our hallway, resembling someone who has just realized they have overstepped their bounds in a game they believed they controlled. The ultimatum that was meant to silence my inquiries has instead provided me with the clarity I have been seeking since that first Sunday morning when everything began to shift. For the first time in months, I am certain of my next steps. Colton remains frozen in our hallway, his meticulously styled hair and pricey cologne suddenly appearing as mere costume pieces from a play that has abruptly ended mid-performance. The confidence he had worn like armor while presenting his ultimatum has dissipated, revealing someone who genuinely seems bewildered by how his power play has backfired so dramatically. We should discuss this, he repeats, his voice now tinged with a hint of panic that was absent just 5 minutes ago. We just did, I respond, gathering my laptop and client files with the calm efficiency of someone who has finally ceased resisting the inevitable. You were very clear about your priorities. He follows me up the stairs, his footsteps quick and hesitant behind me. I can sense his gaze as I move about our bedroom, our old bedroom, gathering the materials I need for what is about to be the most significant Sunday of my career. Paige, wait. I didn't mean that we should actually part ways. I was merely trying to convey how crucial it is for you to have faith in me. Trust. That word has been turned into a weapon against me for months. It's been used to make me doubt my instincts and overlook clear evidence. Now it feels empty, devoid of meaning, like calling rain dry or darkness bright. I do trust you, I say, unplugging my laptop charger from the wall. I trust you to put Frederick above everything else. I trust you to lie about your whereabouts and activities. I trust you to forget our anniversary while recalling every detail of her gallery openings. He opens his mouth to argue, but I press on before he can weave another intricate story. Most importantly, I trust that you truly meant what you said downstairs. If I can't come to terms with your relationship with your ex-wife, then we shouldn't be together, and we won't be. I leave him standing in the doorway of our bedroom and make my way to my home office. The space that is about to transform into my war room for executing the most critical strategic decision of my life. The London email sits in my inbox like a door I've been too afraid to open. Afraid of what might lie beyond the familiar boundaries of Richmond and the routine of a marriage that felt secure even while it was suffocating me. But safety is just an illusion when you're slowly drowning. And I've been submerged for so long that I've forgotten what it feels like to breathe. My fingers hover over the keyboard for just a moment before muscle memory kicks in. I type words that seem to come from a stronger, clearer version of myself that I haven't encountered in years. Subject, acceptance of London Division Director position. I'm ready to accept the role. When can we discuss transition logistics and start dates? Thank you for your understanding as I navigate my decision-making process. I'm truly excited about this opportunity. I pressed send before I could second-guess myself, before that part of my mind, which has been conditioned to prioritize others' comfort over my own progress, could disrupt this moment of clear insight. The reply came quicker than I anticipated, within just 4 hours, even on a Sunday evening when most executives are likely at home with their families. Wonderful news. Can you begin in 3 weeks? We will take care of all the relocation details, including temporary housing and assistance with finding a permanent flat. Welcome to the London team. We have been hoping you would accept. 3 weeks, 21 days to dismantle a life I have spent 4 years building and reconstruct it in a city where no one knows my past, where I can be someone other than the wife who couldn't hold her husband's attention. I can hear Colton on the phone, likely calling Frederick to discuss his domestic issues and seek comfort from the woman who seems better suited to meet his emotional needs than his actual wife. The conversation stretches over an hour, his voice carrying the same lively tone that used to be reserved for talks about our future. Monday morning comes with the familiar sound of Colton trying to manage the fallout. His footsteps on the stairs are heavier than usual, burdened by the kind of regret that only appears once the consequences are clear. He walks into our kitchen wearing that specific look men get when they realize they've pushed their luck too far. Apologetic yet defensive. Sorry, but not really. Like someone caught cheating at cards who wants to debate the rules instead of owning up to their actions. About yesterday, he starts, adjusting his cufflinks with anxious precision. I think we both said things we didn't truly mean. In the heat of the moment, we've been under a lot of stress lately. I glance up from my coffee, genuinely intrigued by his altered view of what transpired. Stress. It feels as though external circumstances compelled him to place his ex-wife above our marriage, as if spending every weekend with another woman was something that happened to him rather than a choice he made repeatedly. Which part didn't I mean? I inquire, my tone reflecting the calm curiosity of someone observing a captivating psychological study. The part where I concurred with your evaluation of our relationship, or the part where I acknowledged that we shouldn't be together? He runs his fingers through his hair, the same gesture he uses during challenging client presentations when the figures fail to support the story he's attempting to convey. You know what I meant, Paige? You were being. He halts before completing that thought, likely recalling how well labeling me as ridiculous turned out yesterday. I was being what, Colton? Emotional? Reactive? This entire situation with Frederick has you perceiving issues that aren't there. The audacity is astonishing. 4 months of calculated deceit, forgotten anniversaries, missing jewelry, and financial betrayal, and I'm the one creating problems by simply noticing them. I sign the transfer papers, stating it plainly, observing his expression as it processes the news like a computer overwhelmed with too many tasks at once. The kitchen falls completely silent, save for the soft hum of our espresso machine and the sound of Colton's meticulously crafted world beginning to disintegrate. What transfer papers? London. The director position I've been offered 3 times. The one that pays nearly double my current salary. I start in 3 weeks. His coffee cup crashes onto the marble counter with a sharp sound, splattering brown liquid across the surface in patterns reminiscent of abstract art. He gazes at me as if I've declared plans to embark on a space mission or pursue a career as a professional acrobat. Something so alien to his perception of who I am that his mind struggles to comprehend the information. You can't be serious. We never talked about this. You can't just make unilateral decisions regarding our future. The hypocrisy is so striking that I can hardly contain my laughter. The same man who has been making unilateral decisions about our weekends for months, who has been maintaining a relationship with his ex-wife without considering how it affects our marriage, is now suddenly worried about collaborative decision-making. Actually, I respond, as I clean up the spilled coffee with paper towels that feel oddly symbolic of tidying up messes that weren't mine to begin with. Especially since you've made it clear that our future isn't a priority for you. That's not fair. You know how much you mean to me. Frederick, Because from my perspective, it seems that Frederick's career, Frederick's emotional needs, and Frederick's social life have taken precedence over anything concerning your actual wife. He begins to object, but I press on before he can delve into another lengthy justification about the innocence of professional friendships and the maturity of keeping ties with ex-spouses. The house goes on the market this Friday, I add, because there's no sense in prolonging revelations that will be painful no matter when they come to light. The color drains from his face so rapidly that I fear he might actually faint. You can't sell our house. It's our home. It's where we've built our life together. It's my house, I gently correct him, though my gentleness is more for my own peace than for his comfort. The mortgage, the deed, the down payment, all in my name alone. I purchased it 6 months before we got married. Remember, you helped pick out the furnishings. The financial reality weighs down on him like a heavy burden. Colton earns a good salary for someone his age, but he has become accustomed to our shared lifestyle. The kind of comfortable life that requires 2 incomes to sustain without stress. I can't afford anything similar on my own, he admits, his voice small in a way I haven't heard since his father's business collapsed during our 2nd year of marriage. I know, I reply, and I truly mean it without any malice. But that's no longer my concern. The man in my kitchen in my home, dressed in clothes I purchased for him, suddenly appears as someone I am seeing with clarity for the first time. Not the partner I envisioned marrying, but rather someone who has been occupying my space, consuming my emotional resources, and capitalizing on my investment in our shared future while he chases his own interests with another person entirely. 3 weeks suddenly feels like both an excessive amount of time and not nearly enough to free myself from 4 years of intertwined finances, shared belongings, and the complex framework of a marriage that evidently meant much more to me than to him. Yet, for the first time in months, I experience a feeling akin to excitement instead of dread. When I contemplate what lies ahead, 3 weeks feels like both an eternity and a fleeting moment. As I dismantle a life piece by piece, the days merge into a monotonous cycle of boxes, legal documents, and the peculiar intimacy of dividing shared belongings with someone who has turned into a stranger. Colton wanders through our home like a specter haunting his own existence, occasionally attempting conversations that seem more like negotiations than authentic communication. The morning of my departure arrives, with the grey and drizzly London weather that somehow seems fitting for endings. I am sealing the last of my boxes when the doorbell rings, persistent as if someone has urgent news. James stands on my doorstep with his laptop tucked under his arm and a look I recognize from our toughest client meetings, the expression he wears when he has uncovered something significant that no one will want to hear. We need to talk, he states, stepping into my hallway without waiting for an invitation. Before you leave, there's something you need to see. He places his laptop on our dining room table, the same table where Colton and I used to plan dinner parties and discuss weekend trips we will never take. The screen displays information with the meticulous efficiency of someone who has dedicated significant time to organizing evidence. I was analyzing social media metrics for that gallery client. James starts typing on the keyboard with a skillful touch. Frederick Morrison's name appeared in the data. Consequently, I conducted further research. What I uncovered alters everything. The screen is filled with screenshots, timestamps, and social media posts arranged in a systematic manner that makes my marketing background appreciate the thoroughness, even as my heart sinks at the implications. The Sunday brunches, James remarks, as he clicks through images that appear like evidence in a courtroom. They weren't emergency counseling sessions at local cafes. Observe these locations. The photos narrate a different story than any Colton has ever shared with me. Picture the trendy shortage restaurant with the 40 tasting menu. Chilton Firehouse, a hotspot for celebrities to be photographed. The River Cafe, which requires reservations made months in advance and costs more per meal than most people's weekly grocery budget. These aren't the types of places where you grab coffee to support someone through a professional crisis. These are intentional destinations, the kind of restaurants where individuals go to impress one another, to create memories, to celebrate significant occasions. She has been documenting everything, James continues, his tone carrying the careful neutrality of someone delivering heartbreaking news as gently as possible. Not just meals, but activities as well. Look at this. The apartment hunting photos make my stomach churn. Not just any properties, but specific listings in Richmond. Streets within walking distance of our home. Neighborhoods where she could easily integrate into our daily lives. Places where running into us would feel natural rather than coincidental. However, the most heartbreaking evidence comes from what James refers to as Frederick's professional portfolio. A complete photography series named New Beginnings has been evolving alongside her relationship with my husband. The images are infused with artistic precision, amplifying their emotional resonance to a striking degree. Our beloved pub, the White Swan, is beautifully captured in the golden hour light, transforming the familiar setting into a romantic and intimate space. The antique shops on Hill Reese, where Colton and I would leisurely browse on lazy Saturday afternoons, now serve as a backdrop for artistic compositions that imply someone is documenting their systematic reclamation of territory. Even the Richmond Farmers Market finds its way into her portfolio, photographed through the lens of someone who recognizes the emotional weight of shared spaces and seeks to claim them for her own narrative. Each image is time-stamped, James points out, highlighting the dates that unveil the extent of what has transpired. This is not mere casual documentation, it is a conscious effort to create a visual record of supplanting another woman's life, one location at a time. The photography is undeniably stunning, with each image crafted with professional expertise that elevates ordinary locations into something deserving of gallery display. However, understanding the context renders every artistic decision feel like an act of violence. Each meticulously framed shot appears as evidence of a calculated invasion. There's more, James adds, his voice lowering as he navigates through folders arranged by date and location. The timeline contradicts everything Colton has shared with you. The timestamps expose a pattern that brings 4 months of deception into sharp focus. The evidence stretches over several months, uncovering not only infidelity but also a complex scheme of manipulation that makes my earlier perception of our situation appear naive in comparison. While Colton was sharing insights about Frederick's vulnerabilities and career challenges, she was chronicling their romance as if it were a triumphant achievement, creating lasting records of moments that were meant to be healing exchanges between old friends. I realize she has been orchestrating this entire affair, as I scroll through images that depict growing intimacy and confidence. This was not a mere accidental emotional reconnection, it was a calculated effort. James acknowledges this, shutting the laptop with the finality of someone who has concluded a case they wish they could avoid presenting. I'm sorry, Paige. I understand this complicates things further, but he's mistaken. Observing the evidence does not worsen the situation, it clarifies it. For 4 months, I have been doubting my instincts, questioning whether I was overreacting to what I thought was innocent friendship, allowing Josephine's lectures on trust and maturity to convince me that my worries were signs of personal failure rather than accurate perceptions of real threats. Now, I realize that my instincts were not only correct but also cautious. The reality was more severe than I had anticipated, more calculated and intentional than my deepest fears had indicated. 2 hours later, I find myself in the departure lounge at Heathrow, surrounded by the meticulously packed remnants of my life in Richmond. The revelations from this morning feel like the final pieces of a puzzle I hadn't realized I was piecing together. They complete a picture that not only clarifies what transpired but also explains why every effort to mend our marriage was destined to fail from the outset. You cannot fix something when one party is methodically dismantling it while pretending to assist with its upkeep. My phone vibrates with a text from Colton. What are you doing this weekend? The inquiry carries assumptions that would have been accurate just a week ago. Here I am, sitting in a gloomy temporary place, feeling regret for my impulsive choice, and reconsidering the drastic move of leaving our shared life behind. The reality of London seems daunting compared to the comfort of my routine in Richmond, even if that routine had turned toxic. Yet, I glance around the departure lounge, filled with individuals embarking on new adventures, exploring new possibilities, and discovering versions of themselves they have yet to meet. For the first time in months, I experience a flicker of excitement instead of dread when I contemplate what lies ahead. I snap a selfie in front of the departure boards showcasing destinations that evoke a sense of freedom. Paris, Amsterdam, Rome, and at the top, London. My boarding pass is visible in the frame, and a genuine smile replaces the months of forced cheerfulness that deceived everyone but me. I type, starting my new life, adding the photo before hitting send. The response is instantaneous. Wait, you're really leaving? Come back. We can sort this out. But I am already boarding, my phone switching to airplane mode as London awaits. Behind me, Richmond diminishes to a mere problem I once faced. Ahead lies a city where no one knows my past, where I can redefine myself beyond the wife who couldn't hold her husband's attention. The plane ascends, carrying me away from 4 years of carefully crafted lies and toward 3 weeks of clarity that finally makes sense of everything that had been confusing. The plane lands at Heathrow with a gentle bump, marking the start of new beginnings meeting solid ground. Through the small oval window, London unfolds beneath grey skies that somehow appear more hopeful than Richmond's familiar sunshine ever did. At 32 years old, I carry 2 suitcases and a laptop bag containing everything I need to create a life that is entirely my own. The flat in Shoreditch surpasses all expectations set by my company's relocation team. Exposed brick walls that have borne witness to decades of stories in London. Industrial lighting casts a glow that makes everything appear as if it belongs in a design magazine, while floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city skyline like a painting that shifts with every change in light and weather. On my first morning, I find myself standing at those windows, sipping coffee from the artisanal roaster located 3 floors below, observing London come to life around me. The coffee here has a unique taste. It's not just about the beans or the brewing technique. It's the experience of enjoying it without the burden of wondering where my husband truly spent his time yesterday, without dissecting text messages for hidden meanings. Without that persistent low-level anxiety that had become my norm, I had forgotten what true peace felt like. The office building in Canary Wharf buzzes with a creative energy I had thought was lost in professional settings. My new team is driven, innovative, and eager to showcase their talents in ways that remind me why I once loved marketing before it turned into just another routine that was slowly suffocating me. In just 2 weeks, I've rolled out 3 strategies that boost client retention by 30%. This success feels different from my achievements in Richmond. It's not merely professional validation, it's evidence that I can create something significant when I'm not preoccupied with managing someone else's emotional turmoil. For the first time in months, I can go entire days without the compulsion to check my phone, without questioning if the person who professed to love me was deceiving me, without feeling as though I'm navigating emotional landmines disguised as ordinary conversations. Back in Richmond, according to mutual friends who can't help but share updates, my departure sparked exactly the kind of chaos I had hoped to evade, yet secretly knew was unavoidable. Colton's meticulously maintained double life collapsed spectacularly once I removed myself from the equation. Josephine, my previous lunch partner and relationship advisor, surprisingly shows a keen interest in discussing the consequences of my strategic exit. Frederick anticipated a completely different result. During one of her update calls, which feel more like entertainment than true concern, she informs me that she believed the Sunday meetings were a form of courtship leading to a commitment, with Colton seemingly preparing to leave you for her. The irony is striking. When I took the initiative to end the triangle by completely withdrawing, Frederick found herself awkwardly positioned as the other woman in a relationship that had ceased to exist. According to Josephine's excited updates, her reaction was quick and artistically heartbreaking. The New Beginnings photography series, which had chronicled her systematic takeover of my life, was refreshed with a new collection titled False Starts. Stark black and white photographs of empty restaurant tables, discarded coffee cups, and solitary figures in places that once held promise now only conveyed feelings of betrayal and misjudgment. The artistic message was unmistakable. She had been manipulated just as thoroughly as I had been. Cast as the romantic heroine in a narrative where the male lead had never truly committed to anything beyond self-indulgence and weekend fun. The Richmond house sold in just 6 weeks. The Georgian townhouse featured in Frederick magazines was bought by a young couple who likely envisioned creating the kind of enduring partnership that Colton and I had only pretended to establish. The proceeds, after settling my mortgage, Grant me a level of financial freedom that transforms London from a mere escape into a genuine investment in my future. 6 months into my new life, I receive an unexpected message via LinkedIn, a professional platform that feels suitably neutral for what turns out to be the most significant conversation I never realized I needed to have. Frederick Morrison has requested a private meeting, her message carefully crafted and lacking the artistic flair that typically defines her social media persona. We decide to meet at a cafe in Covent Garden, a neutral space where neither of us has any past connections or emotional ties. She appears smaller than I had envisioned, more delicate than the confident bohemian goddess I had imagined during months of observing her online presence. The weariness in her eyes reflects a particular kind of fatigue that arises from realizing you've been cast as the antagonist in someone else's narrative without knowing the script. I wanted to apologize, she states without any preamble. Her hands clutch a coffee cup as if it is grounding her in this conversation, for everything. For believing things that weren't true, for being part of something that caused you pain, for not asking the right questions. She takes a moment, gazing into her cup as if it holds the answers to questions she is still learning to formulate. Colton told me your marriage was essentially over, she goes on, her voice shrinking with each word. That you were merely going through the motions until it was convenient to divorce. That you had grown apart and were staying together for financial reasons. The audacity of it all is astonishing, yet I find myself experiencing an unexpected emotion. Pity instead of anger. And you believed him? I ask. I wanted to, she confesses with a level of honesty that only emerges when denial is no longer an option due to the consequences faced. It made everything easier to rationalize. The restaurant outings, the photography project, the apartment searches in your area. If your marriage was already over, then I wasn't truly ruining anything. The discussion lasts for 2 hours. 2 women unraveling the intricate fiction one man had woven to bolster his ego while keeping both of us engaged in competing narratives of the same fantasy. Colton had been skillfully playing both sides, depicting me as controlling and suspicious to her while portraying her as needy and fragile to me. I've experienced what you're going through, she says as we get ready to leave. The wife is puzzled about why her husband craves so much companionship from his ex. It's heartbreaking, and I played a part in that pain. As our discussion wraps up, she offers the perfect conclusion to what I now feel comfortable referring to as my story of revenge. Although revenge suggests a more deliberate malice than what truly transpired. He's utterly alone now, she remarks, as she gathers her vintage leather jacket with movements that reflect someone who has learned to bear disappointment with a certain artistic elegance. The house has been sold. He's now renting a dreary flat in Clapham, spending his weekends binge-watching Netflix instead of nurturing relationships with women who don't really know him. The irony is so striking it feels almost scripted. Colton, who had been so eager for female attention that he juggled relationships with both his wife and ex-wife at the same time, now finds himself with neither. The man who craved constant validation from various sources to feel interesting has now experienced what it means to be truly alone with himself. As I walk back to my modest flat through streets adorned with galleries and cafes that characterize my new life, I realize something significant has changed in my understanding of what transpired between us. I no longer feel anger. Anger demands ongoing emotional investment in someone else's decisions. Instead, I have channeled that energy into creating something that genuinely benefits me. I find myself feeling grateful. Grateful that Colton was audacious enough to issue that ultimatum. Grateful that he misjudged my readiness to call his bluff. Grateful that he liberated me from a marriage that was gradually stifling everything genuine about who I once was. Sometimes, people do you the greatest favor of your life by revealing exactly who they are. Colton demonstrated that he would choose drama over stability, ego satisfaction over partnership, and manipulation over honest communication. In revealing his true self, he also illuminated the person I could become. A person who will not settle for anything less than what she truly deserves. Someone who prioritizes her own needs when others fail to do so. Someone who has finally realized that you cannot salvage a relationship with someone who has already emotionally checked out. Each morning, as I awaken in my warehouse flat, observing London spring to life outside my windows, I recall that pivotal moment in our Richmond kitchen when everything shifted. The moment I ceased to fight for someone who wasn't invested in us and began to advocate for myself instead. I ultimately chose myself, and it turned out to be the best choice I've ever made. If this tale of intentional freedom has kept you engaged from beginning to end, please hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Paige responded to Colton's ultimatum with that perfectly composed, "You're absolutely right." What was your favorite moment from her journey? Share it in the comments below. Frederick is always on the lookout for more inspiring stories of self-empowerment. Subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss an update.